Hey, it's Gentle K, your tech guide. Today, let's break down the real difference between an API and a webhook, and why mixing them up can quietly blow up your server bill. Let's get into it. Ever tried to add a payment feature and gotten stuck on this question? Do you have to keep checking whether the payment went through, or does it just tell you automatically? This video clears that up completely. And later on, I will show you a common mistake that happens when people build this backward, one that quietly runs up a huge server bill. Before we get into any of that, here's exactly what you'll walk away with by the end of this video. This video gives you exactly two things. First, the direction difference. An API is something you ask for. A webhook is something the other side tells you first. Second, a clear way to decide which one you actually need. So first, let's look at why this mix-up happens in the first place. All right, let's start with the situation that makes this so confusing, before we sort out the two different ways to handle it. These days, a lot of apps need to know when something happens on another service. Payments, messages, automated deployments, you name it. Did the payment go through? Did the message arrive? Did the deployment finish? All of that happens somewhere else. By the way, an API is basically a counter where you ask another service to tell you something. We covered that in an earlier video. Today is about how you actually use that counter to find out what happened. And it turns out there are two completely different ways to do it. Either you keep asking or the other side tells you first. But most people just lump both of these together as integration, and that's exactly how they end up building the direction backward. Let's say the answer up front. An API is something you ask for. A request goes out and a response comes back. Asking the same thing over and over until you get an answer, that's called polling. It just means repeating the question until you finally get a result. Here's the flow. You ask, did the payment go through? The other side says, not yet. So you wait a bit and ask again, did the payment go through? You keep repeating that until it actually happens. A webhook works the exact opposite way. When something happens, the other side tells you about it first. Here's how that works. You register ahead of time. When the payment goes through, send it to this address. Then the moment the payment actually happens, the other side sends a request straight to that address on its own. You never have to wait around for it. So the real point here is direction. With an API, you reach out first. With a webhook, the other side reaches out first. One is you extending your hand, the other is them extending theirs. Now that you've got the direction clear, let's lock it in with a scene everyone already knows. Picture checking a package delivery. You're curious about your delivery, so you open the app and keep refreshing it. Not there yet, until you finally see it's arrived. That's the API. You're the one doing the asking. But some deliveries don't need a refresh at all. A text just shows up saying the package arrived. You don't even have to be holding your phone. That's the webhook. The other side tells you on its own. Let's look at two real scenes. 1. You're building a payment feature with Stripe, and you write code that calls the API every few seconds just to check if the payment succeeded. Later, you find out Stripe already had a webhook that tells you the moment a payment completes. You never needed to keep refreshing. 2. A developer tells you, this notification comes in through a webhook. Now you immediately understand what that means. You don't have to keep checking. It just shows up on its own. So here's how this actually plays out when you're building something real, and how to decide which one you actually need. Here's when this actually matters. The moment you connect to another service like payments, messaging, or CI/CD. And you need to know the instant something changes. There's a trade-off worth knowing too. Polling is simple to build. You just keep asking over and over. But every one of those requests adds load to the server, and that adds up in cost. A webhook is efficient. It only fires once when something actually happens. But there's a catch. Your address has to be ready to respond at that exact moment. If your server happens to be down, you can miss that notification. In practice, teams handle that with retry logic. But that's an implementation detail, so today we'll just leave it at knowing it exists. Remember that costly mistake I mentioned earlier? Here's exactly where it comes from. If you don't know a webhook exists and you keep calling the API every few seconds anyway, what happens? Whether the payment went through or not, you're stacking up tens of thousands of requests a day. And every single one of those gets counted as API usage until one day you open the bill and it's spiked out of nowhere. That's a cost you never had to pay if you'd just known about the webhook. So, how does this decision actually play out inside a real company? Here's a planner and a developer talking it through.
Once a payment goes through, we need to flip the order status to complete right away. How do we actually check for that?
There are two ways. Either we keep asking, "Did it go through yet?" or we have the payment provider tell us the moment it's done.
Wouldn't it make more sense for them to just tell us?
Exactly, that's a webhook. We don't have to keep asking. The payment provider lets us know on its own.
Oh, let's go with that then. Does it take long to set up?
Not really. We just register our server's address ahead of time, and we're done.
We've covered a lot today, so let's pull the key ideas together before we wrap up. Here's what to remember. An API is something you ask for when you need it. A webhook is something the other side tells you about the moment it happens. The direction is reversed. When you're building something like payments or messaging, don't just default to constantly checking. Look for a webhook first. Getting notified beats asking over and over every time. And that's everything for today. I hope this one helped. If it did, I'll see you in the next one. That's it from Gentle K. Thanks for watching, and remember, just start. It's easier than you think.